Welcome to the Franchise Woman podcast, where passion and purpose collide, profits are made, and relationships are forged. I'm Rebecca Monet, CEO and Chief Scientist at Zoracle Profiles, along with my co-host, community advocate, speaker, author, and entrepreneur, Tracy Kawa. Our special guest today is Kim Hanson. Kim is the CEO of LearningRx, the largest one-on-one brain training company in the world, with 60 plus centers in the US and locations in over 40 countries around the globe. She began her leadership role with the organization in 2004 as executive vice president and was named chief executive in 2017. Her career passion is to help professionals, educators, and parents learn more about cognitive skill training and the dramatic results it can have on real life performance. Kim is a certified franchise executive and is a graduate of North Central University in Minneapolis. She's a proud daughter of Dr. Ken Gibson, the founder of LearningRx, with whom she co-authored the book Unlock the Einstein Inside in 2007. Beyond the workplace, Kim enjoys mentoring high school and college students as they identify future career options. In addition, she is a vocal advocate for the civil rights of people with intellectual and developmental disability. Kim is married, has 4 beautiful children, and is a die-hard Green Bay Packers fan. Kim, thank you for joining us today. We really appreciate you carving out some time.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Woohoo!
Kim, I am so excited to hear more about you. I think especially because with Rebecca being a behavioral scientist and both of us just being fascinated with the whole learning process itself. But first, take us back a little bit. That must have been really amazing growing up with your dad who founded the company. What was some of those early life lessons like?
Yeah, well, my dad really sought out to answer one question. And that question was, how can you have a smart person that has trouble reading? And so from even being really little, I know when I was 4 months old, my dad put me on an inclined board to see if I would crawl faster. So he always studied, like, what did it take to learn? When I was 2, he taught me how to read with flashcards in my high chair. I knew, I think, 860 words.
Wow.
Now that's the wrong way to do it, but he didn't know that at the time. And so, yeah, I have been taking IQ tests since I was 4. And so I was always kind of my dad's study. When I was 3, he started a preschool for me that did a lot of like it's kind of back when Montessori was new.
Yeah.
And it was a program called DISTAR that was like a reading program. And he actually started a whole chain of preschools. So,
Wow.
yeah.
You were his guinea pig.
I was his guinea pig. I try not to say that, but I'm totally his guinea pig.
Yeah, but you got to be part of what ended up becoming LearningRx. So technically, you've been in the business since the day you were born.
Pretty much, at least a few months after I was born.
Yeah, just a few months later. That's crazy. So tell us what it was like. So growing up, your dad was fascinated with how someone could be really bright but struggle in particular areas. So he started with the reading area. And tell us a little bit about how you ended up in the business. And then, of course, please tell us a little bit about what LearningRx does for your clients.
Okay, yeah. So I think there are kind of 3 factors that made up who I am today or what I'm doing today. And one of those is that I've always wanted to help people. And so that's always been a passion of mine, is helping people. So my background is actually in teaching. And I started teaching in the inner city. So I had a choice. I could go to like this really nice school in the suburb, or I could go into the inner city, and that's where my passion lied. I wanted to, just really help people, make a difference in someone's life who maybe didn't have, I don't know, all of the chances. And so I've always been about helping people. I think another factor in my life is that I've always enjoyed business. When I was 4, my dad started calling me his business partner. And he would take me. I'd go with him everywhere. We would buy real estate together. My dad had a goal at one point to, I think, own like 40 buildings or units. And so I would go and, he would even ask me like what I thought, and we would go to the banker and that type of thing. So business has always been something that I've loved. I started my own card business when I was 9. Yeah. So I always loved to doodle, and I had 3 cards and a postcard, and we went and had them printed up at the printer. And then when we got home, I put them in little sandwich baggies. And then my dad said, okay, well, go sell them. And I was like, what? I have to sell them too? And so he said I had to sell 10 packs before I could have dinner. So I went out and sold them. What's kind of amazing is on the back of my cards, I wrote, hi, my name is Kimmy Gibson. And if you'd like more of my cards, write to me at 312 North Union Street, Appleton, Wisconsin. And even when I was in college, I would have to fulfill, 10 years later, I would be fulfilling orders. Isn't that crazy?
Goodness.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
So business has always been a part of what I do. And then just brain training also, just cognitive skills and the way people learn has always, just studying people. Because my dad did, it's always been kind of a love of mine too.
You sound like a daddy's girl. This makes me want to cry. This is so beautiful, how he made you such a priority in his life, and how you got to learn by observing him and by him encouraging you, and which just brought this natural love for business. Never mind, you have this really fun kind of creative side also. I'm sorry, Tracy.
He does the same thing with his grandkids now. So he's always,
It's so cute. It's so cute.
I think it's fascinating that all of this stems out of his desire to answer one question of, how, repeat it please, about reading.
Yeah. Right? So when he was a kid, he was so smart that they had him skip a grade, but reading was always difficult, and he couldn't, he's a little bit like the makeup of Einstein, where his auditory processing was weak, but everything else was off the chart smart. And so it just, he didn't want learning to stop any of his kids. He wanted it to be easy. And so that's why I think he looked into it. And for him, it was hard. He used to watch Perry Mason when he was a kid, and he thought, oh, it'd be so cool to be like Perry Mason. But then you have to like write and be really good at reading. And that wasn't his expertise. He was a lot better at math and science and that type of thing. So that's the direction that he went. But yeah, it really comes out of that question of how can you have a smart person that struggles to learn, struggles to read?
Wow. And then
that's kind of right up there with the question of how can a smart person lack common sense, right? It puts me in the mind of a question like that.
Yeah, but it's a question that created a lifelong passion for him, and ultimately has changed the lives of thousands of people. And
hundreds of thousands,
hundreds of thousands of people LearningRx has helped out of this single question, how can a smart person have difficulty reading? And he dug in to discover what the answer was to that. And out of that came some solutions that ultimately turned into LearningRx. So tell us a little bit about LearningRx and this whole cognitive learning process and what you guys are up to.
Yeah. So most people don't know this, but there's two parts to SMART. There's what you know, which is like on the academic side, it's school, it's tutoring, it's what would help you do really well on Jeopardy. So it's like what you know. And then there's the other side to SMART, which is how you process information. And that's the side that we work on. So we don't do academics, and don't work on what you know. It's all about how you process information. And there are 7 underlying pieces, 7 cognitive skills that are the most important to how you learn and perform. And those are things like attention, processing speed, memory, both working and long-term, visual processing, and logic and reasoning. And so we strengthen those with one-on-one exercises. So you would sit down with a trainer and we would look at where your strengths and your weaknesses are. And then we only work on what you can't do. So very quickly, we find where it starts being hard for you, like on that procedure. And then that's where we would start. And so every time we can go up a level, we have grown that skill.
This sounds like it would be an incredible program for somebody with ADHD or for somebody with some kind of sensory or auditory processing or visual processing. Wow.
Yeah. We have helped, in fact, the number one thing we've helped people is people that have had trouble reading or remembering what they've read or understanding what they've read. And then the second most likely person for us to help is someone with attention issues.
Yes.
And there's 3 types of attention, and we work on all 3. So how long you can do something, which is sustained; selective, which is ignoring, someone talking or outside disturbances. And then there's divided, which is being able to do more than one thing. So kind of going back and forth and finding your place. And we work on all 3 of those.
I hadn't thought of it in those ways before. The 3 different attentions. I'm just flashing back to my son, who had some difficulty in school when he was younger. And as you're describing it, his was in the divided area. He was frequently distracted. Learning wasn't a problem. Even concentration or focus wasn't a problem, in that kind of way. But if there's any kind of noise or outside activity going on, his mind would be distracted by it. But if we took him into a separate room, I used to go to class with him, and we would move him separate of the room where he wasn't distracted by other things, and he learned just like that once. But we didn't have LearningRx back then.
And that's a great accommodation.
But
in real life, you can't always go into in a separate room, right? And so that's what's so cool about being able to change and improve these cognitive skills and strengthen them, is that now you don't need accommodations. Now you don't need longer to take a test. You have the ability yourself.
I'm so curious what changes you've seen throughout the years. Let's say from the time that your dad started the program till now, where social media, and we have the 2 seconds span of focus, right? Every year, I say that as a joke, 2 seconds, but every year it gets shorter and shorter. It started out as, a span of focus being 9 minutes, then 7, then, every year it gets cut back. What changes have you seen regarding social media and just society in general?
Yeah, I'll tell you 2 changes that I have noticed. One is with like people my age. Before, the generation before me had really good visual processing skills. And here's the difference. the generation before me listened to the radio, and they would read books that didn't have pictures in them. And so they would have to create like the movie in their head or the pictures as they were listening. And so a generation before me has a lot better visual processing skills than my generation. My generation, you know, when I was a kid in the 70s, we had beautiful picture books, and I love picture books, but all the pictures were there for my generation. We didn't sit around and yeah, or maybe we didn't have someone who read to us from a chapter book yet until later. And so our visual processing skills are not as strong as a generation before us. And then you're right, Tracy, this generation is when it comes to sustained attention and selective attention, it can be really difficult for them. So they've lost, you know, someone my age has a lot better attention skills.
That makes total sense. Everything is
my kids. Yeah.
Yeah. Everything's instant gratification for our younger generations. And I hadn't thought about the visual piece, but I've often thought about, you know, I'm obviously much older than you, where we had to use our imagination. We had to make stories up or pictures up in our head, and, you know, not as much TV, not as much internet, all of that kind of stuff. And even like you said, picture books, those didn't exist. You kind of had to imagine it and make the pictures in your head. So the brain just has these additional synapses, right? There's additional connections that maybe you don't get developed if you don't have that need to imagine and create.
Yeah.
Wow. I love it. So you got 60 plus locations. You're in 40 countries, making a difference all over the world. If you could quantify how many people LearningRx has helped with their cognitive abilities, can you quantify that for us?
Mm-hmm. I think that we're coming on 130,000 people that we've helped with brain training.
That's unbelievable. Just unbelievable. And then they in turn, are some of these techniques that they can teach their children, who can teach their children, or how does that work?
You can kind of. Here's the thing though, too, is when a person does struggle to learn, it doesn't just affect them, it affects their whole family. So if you were to actually add up the families that go with each one of those brains that we've helped, and, you know, it's kind of cool. I now get to meet people that went through, you know, now they're adults and they're out in occupations helping people because they were helped. So, you know what I mean? It kind of expands pretty quickly. Yeah.
So by them getting help, they can now do their jobs better. They can focus better. They can be better parents. They can be better teachers. They can be better mechanics, whatever it is, which then ultimately has this trickle effect.
Yeah. We've helped athletes. We've helped doctors, lawyers. We've helped, I mean, there's just teachers. There are so many people. I know of someone who's actually training to be an astronaut that has gone through our program. And so, yeah, our reach has been so wide that it's pretty cool when you think about how many people can be helped by someone who now has the confidence and the ability to learn better, faster, and easier.
Indeed.
Do you have any success stories, or just one success story that you can share with our audience, just something that they can connect with and kind of grasp onto?
Yeah, we have so many of them. In fact, if you want to go onto our website and watch some videos, it's one of my favorite things to do. So every Monday, I start out by watching a story. And the story that I watched this Monday was he was he his story came to us because he was nominated to be like a student of the year, and his name is Brody, and he's a second grader, and he loves dinosaurs, and reading was really hard for him. And he would explain, he would avoid it. He wanted nothing to do with it. He didn't understand it. He would look at pictures and just guess words. And, but he was like a really smart kid. And he went through our LearningRx programs. And I even think he did part remote and part in person. It was during this last year. And he now, his mom tells a story about one night she heard a noise and she went to go see what was happening. And this was maybe 4 or 5 months into his program with LearningRx. And she could hear him reading out loud.
Oh.
And it was from a book, a chapter book. And she had never really heard him just read out loud all on his own. It's something that he would totally avoid, that he didn't think that he could do, and really frustrated him. And she turned on the light and she said, "Are you reading?" And he said, "Yeah, Mom. And I'm reading not because I have to for school. I'm reading because I want to. And can I stay up and read longer?" And she was like, "Yes, you can." And he tells a story about how he wants to grow up and be a paleontologist, and study dinosaurs and bones. And he talks, you can tell his parents have always loved reading. And so it was really hard for them to have a child who struggled so much with it and would avoid it. And yeah, now he loves it and asked to go to the library to get more books. So that's the one I watched on Monday. I have
such a beautiful story, which only makes me think, because I was surprised that you just gave us the story of a 2-year-old, but it only makes me think that if these are the results you're getting with a 2-year-old, imagine the program over a long period of time, or imagine the program where you're starting out with someone with a knowledge base.
Yeah. Now he's a second grader. I might have, did I say that wrong?
Second grader, got it.
He was a second grader, yes.
That's amazing, but still young, very young. That's amazing.
It is amazing. You know, to me, as I'm listening to this story, and I know you have thousands of them, Kim, is you're not just changing their cognitive ability and helping them have greater attention, greater, ability to retain, and but you're changing their self-esteem. You're building their self-confidence. That's hard to measure because that affects every area of life. As self-confidence will increase initiative and courage and 1,000 other things. So yes, he's able to read much better today, but you're changing his whole self, for lack of a better way of describing this.
It's nice to get changes on a cognitive test and be able to see, oh, someone went up, 30%, or they went up, this many age levels. That's great. But if it doesn't change your life, if it doesn't, do something for how you learn better, faster, and easier, then that doesn't matter on a test, right? But what's kind of cool is not only do we measure it on a cognitive test and can see before and after, and you can't fake skill you don't have. So, you know what I mean? These are real changes. We've also seen changes in brain injury and in concussion, physically in the brain, which is really cool. But yeah, it's those life changes, where it helps them every day. And it gives them that confidence. And I mean, I've heard things like, she would only wear black and now she's wearing color. Yeah. I've heard things like he used to suck on his sleeve and now he doesn't. You know what I mean? So it's like this nervousness, this anxiousness about being in a situation where like you're in a classroom and life is going past you and you're missing what is going on and you're missing, what they're talking about. And to go from that to helping students around you learn something. And so, there is that confidence that comes along with that you, I don't know, it's a gift.
It is a gift.
That I think every parent should give their child.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And it's not just for kids, it's for adults too. I could tell you stories about, we had a man that we worked with, and he was an engineer and had a great job. He had a bicycle accident where he was left in a coma and they found him 2 days later and he was in a coma, and he lost his cognitive abilities 8 years late, and was now cleaning at the office that he used to be an executive engineer at. And he went through our program, and he was actually after brain injury and was able to get his former job back. Isn't that incredible?
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a story.
Amazing.
That's a great
Isn't that amazing?
story.
That is amazing.
He couldn't play card games with his family. He couldn't remember things at the store. He would get lost. He had a hard time driving, and he went from that to having almost all of that skill back after brain training. So,
wow.
That is a wow.
Yeah.
You know what, Kim? It's when you think of the brain, it's kind of the last frontier, right? We really are still learning so much about the brain. You shared with me, and I'm wondering if you could share it for our audience too, a visual of how these exercises work and create these connections in the brain. I think if we could visually see how these exercises light up and cause connections in the brain, it'll drive this point home. Do you mind sharing that picture and telling us a little about it?
Yeah. So just last week, I was at LSU, and we were doing some kind of exploratory scans. This is my brain right there doing one of our exercises. And what we were looking at, you can see the colors are the connections that are going across from different areas of your brain that require connection during different exercises. And so what we were looking at is, for example, if I was working on auditory processing, it was lighting up in the areas that you would want it to light up. And then when I was working on attention and processing speed, then those areas were connecting. And it's pretty cool. That's my brain doing one of our exercises called color word. And as I was doing it, they were doing distractions. So they were yelling things at me like, I don't know. They were trying to make me laugh and get me off beat.
So they were distracting you. You were doing this exercise at the same time. And
I was in an MRI machine. Yeah. So very close.
That's fascinating.
It really is.
It's giving a visual to something that would normally be so obscure.
It is.
Right.
Yeah. It's just a feeling or whatever. Thank you for sharing that, Kim, especially since it's your own brain.
I know, it's my brain. Doing brain exercises.
So I wonder if we could shift gears and get personal here and talk a little bit. This was your dad's idea and company. He taught you much, but it became your passion, your purpose also. Could you talk a little bit about, first, let's talk about the lessons, the life lessons that you have gotten out of this whole process of coming alongside your dad and now leading the company. Can you share with us some of your life lessons?
Yeah. Well, let me share with you, there's 3 life lessons that I came out of brain training with. So when I was a kid, my dad would do brain training with me, right? And these are the 3 lessons that are now written into every program that a student goes through. And the first one is to get rid of negative talk.
Mm.
And, at LearningRx, we only work on what you can't do. So it's really easy for you to get negative. And a lot of us will rehearse negative things in our head when something's hard, which makes sense. If something's hard, you don't really want to do it. You kind of want to give up and you don't want to try. And so my dad had a Pringles can, and he cut out a bunch of, I probably did it actually. He probably gave me a magazine and I cut out all the eyes and we pasted them all on the Pringles can. And if I said like, I can't, I would have to like spit it out and put it in the I can, because it was like a can with eyes on it. And I'd have to shake it and say, I can, I can, I can, I can. And that is actually still a life lesson in our programs. I know when my daughter Lily was going through our program, if she would be like, I can't, and then, we would make her say, I can, like 5 times. And all of a sudden she'd be like, I can do it if I keep trying. And so that's one of our lessons. Another life lesson is that it's okay to fail. And there are a lot of kids where this lesson is so meaningful to them with the generation now, because a lot of them haven't been in a lot of situations where they've been allowed to fail, and we learn so much from it. And so it's okay to fail. It's just not okay to quit. And, when you're working on something that is difficult, we kind of do it in like these small sections where it's just under your frustration level, but you can almost obtain it. And so if the exercise means you have to do 10 in a row, but you can only do 3 in a row, then we just make a mini goal for you. So let's try to get 5, let's try to get 7, let's try to get 10. So, but you're not going to be able, you're working on things you can't do. So there's going to be a lot of failure, and it's okay to fail. It's just not okay to quit. And you mentioned earlier that I'm a Packer fan. If you go back to Brett Favre, he threw the most touchdown passes, but he also threw the most interceptions.
Oh.
And so if he was afraid to fail, he wouldn't have made all those touchdowns.
True.
And so that's kind of one of the stories there. And then the other thing is anything worthwhile takes hard work.
Yeah.
If you think about it, the things in our lives that mean the most to us are things that take a lot of energy, take a lot of work, take a lot of effort. And, hard working, and to learn that as a kid is just so important. So
Okay,
those are the 3 life lessons from brain training that I learned that now every child learns, and adult when they go through our training.
I particularly love the last one, having taught neurology at a naturopathic medical school for 12 years. This working hard for something, overcoming obstacles, once you've succeeded, gives a sense of personal pride that I did what was necessary to overcome. And it creates beautiful chemicals in the brain, including endorphin and dopamine and all of those beautiful chemicals that rewards the brain for overcoming and for pushing on and to be tenacious, and that everything in life that we want will have some obstacles, and we need to build that muscle of tenacity to keep on keeping on.
Yeah.
So,
when you walk into a brain training, there's a lot of energy because everyone is kind of all in one room and they're all working hard. They're super focused, but also the thing that I love is there's lots and lots of high fives, because when you try, lots of high fives.
yes.
And I love it. love to watch a student that has tried something so hard and then they get it and they're like, yes, I rock at this.
Awesome.
Right? Yeah. Yeah. So you're
Sense of
exactly right,
pride.
Rebecca.
That sense of pride that they get. You know, I even saw it
Yeah.
with my son. The online learning from last year was very difficult for him. And as he totally kept his grades up this year, I see this sense of pride on his face as I'm talking to him about his work.
Mhm.
And just seeing him proud of himself does something to me.
It
Yeah.
really does.
It builds the muscle for other things in life that he's going to have to do that aren't easy, right?
Yeah.
So
Right? Yeah.
you know, it's a tree becomes strong because the wind comes up against it and it learns to stand up against it. So you're teaching these children. All right, I want to shift gears just a little bit because our show is about passion and purpose. Let's talk about purpose. Do you have a purpose in life, and can you articulate it in a way that says, this is who I am, this is what I'm called to do? Do you believe you have a purpose in life?
Yeah. I do have a purpose in life, and I even have it written out. I read Success Principles by Jack Canfield. I don't know, maybe 7 or 8 years ago. And there's an exercise there. And my whole team, we all sat down and we wrote our life purpose out. And I always have it in front of me, so I can even read it to you.
Please, yeah.
Kind of in that exercise, you take like the 3 things that you're really good at, right? Or the things that people have always, I don't know, they've been on like your report card and people always, compliment you. So you take those, and then like, what are kind of how you help others, and then how, if the world was a better place. And so that's kind of the exercise. And so my life purpose is to use my creativity, my wisdom, and my leadership to guide, to inspire, and to equip people to make their lives cognitively better and closer to Jesus.
That is
Wow.
beautiful.
Wow, wow, wow. So the recipe is how to use your creativity, which is a gift that you have. It shows up in many different ways, including in your pottery. I understand you do pottery.
Yeah, this is one of my mugs.
Oh, how cute.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
And your wisdom, which only comes not just from knowledge, but from the application of knowledge, a little bit of what you talked about before, and your leadership. So the recipe for living out your purpose and helping others and doing so for something much bigger than yourself, for Jesus, is these 3 components.
Yeah.
Wisdom, and creativity. How does that show up in your life and in your business? How do you use those 3 things?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I believe that we're kind of have this commission to love God and love people. And that's what I try to do. How does it play out in my daily life? Well, one thing is there's a promise from God that if you ask for wisdom, he'll give it to you. And, you mentioned that in 2017, I became the CEO. I didn't go to school to be a CEO. So luckily, I'm a lifetime learner and I love to learn. I like to put myself around people that are smart, but also sometimes I just don't know. Mm-hmm. And every day when I drive into work, I ask God, I start out my day every day asking for wisdom. And, when I don't know what to do, I ask for more wisdom. And what's amazing is I feel like God gives me the wisdom that I need at the time. And so sometimes it's from an advisor. Sometimes it might be from a podcast that I'm listening to. It might be something an email that I read. Or it might just actually be inspired where I feel I don't know, it could be some scripture that I read where I feel like God will give me the wisdom when I need it. It never comes early, I will say. But there have been some things that have really helped. We do EOS traction.
Mhm.
Are you familiar with that?
Very much so, yes.
Yeah. And so I love solving problems. And that's another way, that's probably, I don't know, if I'm good at anything, it is probably being creative, but it's also making hard things easy. That's, when I came to work for my dad is such a genius and he's so high level, and he expects that people know a lot more than they know sometimes. And I would be like the in between who would like explain my dad's head in a simple way.
Mhm.
Or, you know what I mean? Explain like training or, how we answer the phone. My dad might write a script, or he might, talk about all of this background information, but I put it into 5 easy steps for you. Or, what is the difference between training and teaching? So I've been able to take a lot and branch kind of the difference between my dad's genius and how to make it easy so everyone understands it. I don't know.
That's beautiful.
That is quite a skill set, to be able to take something that's complex and translate it into understandable terminology
Mhm.
for the regular person to understand. That's a fantastic skill set.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. And then just being able to solve problems, even if they're a little bit out of the box.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, Kim, what's next for LearningRx? What's your big vision goal?
Mhm. Well, there are 2 things that we're focused on right now. One is being known. So our vision is to be known as the most loved, most trusted, most effective brain training program in the world. And we are very loved, we are very trusted, we are very effective. The piece of that needs the biggest growth is to be known. There are
Mhm.
so many families out there that have someone that struggles, or just someone who wants to get into a really good school or pass a really hard test where, if they did some brain training, it would help them. And so that to be known, and then helping more students, which means growth. So those are the 2 things that we're focused on. We've done a lot of research. In fact, just this week, we were published for the 17th time in a peer-reviewed journal, which is pretty cool.
Congratulations.
Yeah. And so we've got all the research behind what we do. Like you've seen the brain pictures. We just need more people to know that brain training exists and that it's available and that it's effective, and that it can help you and help your loved ones.
And really, there's a component about learning how to learn. Like you help people to learn their way.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
I think like a lot genius, right? They're ahead of their time. And your time is coming, right? I call it the last frontier, the brain. This greater focus on mental health has brought attention to the brain. So I think LearningRx and everything you're doing in terms of the cognitive training, etc., will begin to get the attention that it deserves. Your dad and you and all that your franchisees have done were before its time, right?
Mhm.
Before its time. And that's very common when you're a genius and you're seeing the future and what the needs are. So you're definitely going to go that direction. So,
Yeah.
which brings me to my final question, just because we're up on our time. Time always flies when you're having fun. Do you feel in some way that this is a calling, what you are doing?
Yeah, very much so. Sorry, now you're making me emotional. It is a calling. It's something I'm trying to be a good steward of. It's a mantle that is on my shoulders. It's a program that is a gift to people, and so many people need this gift. And so, and I also am a steward of all of our wonderful franchisees and our brain trainers that are helping people. You know, I don't do this alone. I do this with some really great people that want to do something meaningful, and they're made up of educators and professionals and a lot of corporate refugees that maybe had a child that struggled, and maybe they drove a few hours you know, to get the training, and then they brought it to their community. So I definitely am called to this.
I think you are too. You're going to make me cry, girl. Because that's how I feel too as I listen to you. This is a spiritual mantle that is on your shoulders. Your dad's gifting was to answer a very big question and come up with some solution. Your mantle is to get it out to the world.
Yeah.
That's a heavy mantle. I applaud you for taking it on.
It's helped my own family too. I don't always talk about my own kids, but you know, I have a son that's a twin who has autism, and it changed his life and did things that doctors told me would never be possible because he had so many developmental delays. And so it's my own story, not just that I grew up with, but a gift I was able to give a son who really needed it, but also my kids, my other children who didn't necessarily need it, but it helped advance them and gave them the confidence to do what they do. Yeah.
Beautiful. All right, ladies, I could go on forever and ever and ever. We want to thank you, Kim, for being here. How do folks get hold of you, learn more about LearningRx?
So you can go on to LearningRx.com, and all of our research is there. Our stories are there. If you're interested in, you know, opening a center, you can click on the Open a Center tab. You can also call, I believe our number is 1-866-BRAIN-01. And even if you don't have a center near you, we can do training over Zoom. And we're getting, in fact, that peer-reviewed journal that just came out, what looked at remote training versus in-person training, and we get great results even over Zoom.
That's brilliant. And back to my delightful co-host, Tracy. Any final words for us and for our audience?
Just to wrap it up, I was sitting here thinking about the multi-generational family challenges, first starting with your dad and his seeking to answer the question about a smart person learning to read, and then moving into the challenges that you had with your autistic son. And I think a lot of the times, or all of the times, God puts these challenges in our hearts so that we can then learn how to overcome these challenges and create the tools and the programs that society needs. So I just wanted to acknowledge you, your family, and I wanted to acknowledge the space that I believe that you hold for learners to learn and for learners to learn their way. So thank you and blessings to you.
Thank you. It's been great talking to you, ladies.
Thank you, Kim. For the rest of you listening in, thank you for listening in to the Franchise Woman podcast, where passion and purpose collide, profits are made, and relationships are forged. We'll see you next week on another episode.